Hi, I'm Scott. In this video, I'll give you a brief tutorial on the different line commands you need to know in order to modify the configuration settings of your RetroPie that's using Emulation Station or Attract mode as its graphical front end. I'll cover the main line commands that you'll need to know in order to perform the task in my series of videos on RetroPie. I'll cover the rudimentary versions of the line commands. For more line commands and more complex uses of the line commands, use Google to search and learn. Some of the configuration setting changes can be done via the GUI, but in certain situations they cannot. So you'll need to exit into the line command prompt. Once you learn how to do some of these simple configuration changes, it will make your RetroPie setup more enjoyable and customized to your needs. These line commands will be useful as we make configuration setting changes within the Mr. Burns 801 image and the Wolfenaz 32GB image. If you've never done this before, it can be overwhelming. But once someone shows you the little nuances, then it's not too bad to adjust the configuration settings to set up the game system the way you want it. Let's get started. In this part of the video, I'm going to demonstrate some of the common line commands that you'll want to use in my videos. These are not the end-all be-all, but it's going to give you most everything you want to do. Once again, Google is your friend, and you can find more difficult or complex versions of these commands or even more commands by using Google. So normally I would have my camera set up displaying my monitor, but it's hard to see these commands. So since we did Wi-Fi in an earlier video to set my RetroPie up on my Wi-Fi, I've got my laptop here and it's also set up on the same Wi-Fi. So I'm going to do a remote control of my Raspberry Pi from a line command and then issue the line commands and capture it that way. So based on an earlier video, since you've been following my playlist, I've downloaded PuTTY, which allows me to do line command share, and in previous video we enabled SSH, which allows us to do command lines. So my Raspberry Pi, it's RetroPie. That's the default. It could be changed. You could call it whatever you want, the host name. Or we could type in the IP address of the Raspberry Pi, which all that's covered in the Wi-Fi video that I've got out here in this playlist. So if you want to see how to get your IP address and all that stuff, watch that video. So I'm just going to open. Now I've got to log in, and the default log on for every new Raspberry Pi is Pi, and then the password is Raspberry, and that's RASPBERRY. Enter. Alright, now I've logged into my Raspberry Pi on that IP address. And now I'm in here, I'm just going to issue we'll do some Wi-Fi related commands first, such as hostname -I. Alright, this says 127.0.1.1. That is not correct. But how do you know that, Scott? It's like, oh, there's some technical answer to that, but I can tell you that's not my IP address I'm looking for. So if I do ifconfig, you get these different sections. The LO section here, that is for your Ethernet or your hardwired. This WLAN is for your wireless network. And in here we see that the IP address 192.168.03.01, which is the one I use to log in up here. So this is your IP address. If you notice here in your hardwired or your networks, the 127.0.0.1, which is similar to this 127.0.1.1. So this is related to your hardwired network. Even though, you got to remember, the Raspberry Pi does have an Ethernet connector built into it. It's just and it's also got Wi-Fi. It's got an antenna built into it. And we're using this demo. We're doing it through the Wi-Fi. So that tells us our network IP address. So am I recommending that you use hostname-I? No, I'm not recommending you use that. I used it in this demo just to show you to be careful. If you think that's right, you're going to be wrong. And if you use ifconfig, you need to know which section to look in. And since we're doing wireless networking, we're always looking in the WLAN section. Okay, so let's see what we do. If we do IP address show, Wow, look, there's that 127.0.0.1 again, but it's in the inet. It's in this one, the low. And that's once again hardwired. Here we go down to option 3, or section 3, the WLAN. So we're looking at WLAN. There's our 192.168.0.31. So it's just important you keep remember, if you're looking for an IP address for the wireless networking Wi-Fi, we're using WLAN. Okay, moving along. So let's look at, since I didn't like you use hostname -I, what if we use -F for full? We do get the name. It's called RetroPie, which is correct. And by the way, there's hostname.s for short. There's -F for full name, -S for short name, and it's also RetroPie. So that's how you can find out your host name. Instead of using hostname -I, use hostname -F or hostname -S. Let's say we want to do some pings. So if we ping the host name, in this case it's retropie.local, if I could spell, local, it comes back. The IP address is 192.168.0.31. Okay, so I'll do Control-C to break this loop. Now if I want to do ping, let's just do RetroPie without the local. Say you forgot to do the local. What happens? And look, it comes back with that 127.0.1.0.1. So once again, this can be really confusing. You got to make sure you use that .local. So I'm doing a Control-C to break it. Let's see what else we can do. Let's do a ping on the actual IP address, 192.168.0.31. And what happens there? It comes back to itself. I mean, you would never do that, but so when would you do that? Let me do a Control-C to break this loop. And I'm going to minimize this window, but I'm going to open up a command line window. I'm on my laptop, and I'm going to do a command prompt. And here, I'm going to do a ping 192.168.0.31. And I hit that, and it's going to come back and says it does find it. So that tells me if I knew the IP address, and from a previous video I wrote this down, as well as the host name of my Raspberry Pi with RetroPie, that if I came to my laptop, I could ping it and see if it was active, as opposed to it might be turned off. So there, that's good. So that's when you would use the ping on the IP addresses from a laptop to the Raspberry Pi. All right, that is basically the list of commands I wanted to cover that are Wi-Fi related. In this section, we're going to start talking about commands, line commands that are related to folders and files. The first one that you use is something called PWD. And PWD displays what the full path is. And right now I'm in /. So I'm going to go forward. All right, so now we're just going to go to the root directory. So cd squiggly. And I'll do ls here. And ls, that lists the objects in a folder. In this case, the blue lines you'll see down here: RetroPie, RetroPie Setup, RPI Fruitbox Master, and scripts. And we'll keep going. If I do cd period attract, that means that's a hidden folder. That if you see a word with a period in front of it, and so now if you notice, it went to when I did a list. If I do PWD, it tells me I'm in home pi-attract. And then when I did the list, it lists these folders that are in blue and the files are in white. So if I want to go backwards, I just hit the double period and it takes me to just the home pi. I'm not in the attract anymore. And if I want to go to the root, I can just do the cd to the squiggly, do a list, and I'm back to PWD. I'm back to the home pi. If I want to go forward to another hidden folder. Now, what's important here is I do lists, and you don't see the attract mode or an emulation there. But if I do a cd with a period, Emulation Station, that indicates it's a hidden folder. If I do pwd, it says I'm in home PuTTY Emulation Station. Remember, I was in home PuTTY and I did a list, but you didn't see Emulation Station here. So you have to know a couple of things about your folder structure here. So if we do a list off Emulation Station, we see some more configuration files. We see some more folders. So let's do CD collections. All right, and if I do ls for a list, I see there's a bunch of CFGs or config files, and there. Notice how they say custom Mario, custom Midway. This means something in emulation. We'll cover that in a future video. But let's say I wanted to change from the Emulation Station to the attract mode. Can you do that? Boom, there you go. So I made a big jump from that hidden Emulation Station folder to the hidden attract mode folder. And I could do the same thing with Emulation Station. Boom. So I keep moving around. So CD is a powerful tool to move you around, especially if you know your folder structures. You can move fairly quickly. ls, that lists the objects in the folder. Now if you do ls-lah, you get like a detail view. If you were in the File Explorer and you said detail, so it gives you some security, and it tells you when it was created or last updated, and there's the names. So it gives you a little bit more information about each of the objects that are in that folder. So, and then of course pwd, and that gives it a full path. So that helps you navigate around. Yeah, you know, most of us growing up now, we're used to the graphical user interface. Not a whole lot of people, but the techiest of techs sit here in a line command nowadays. So let's say you want to copy a file. Let's go into the collections, do ls. So there we have a custom Atari config. So let's say we want to copy that. So how would we do that? We'd use cp for copy. We use a file name, custom atari.config, and we may want to call it custom atari scott.config. Let's do ls, and there we see custom atari scott config. So we copied our file. Let's say you want to delete the file. We could do rm for remove, and we're just going to say custom atari scott.config. Now we do ls for listing, and we don't see the Atari Scott anymore, the custom Atari Scott. So that's how you can copy a file or remove and delete a file. And now right here we are in the collections. Let's say I want to make a new folder. We call that a directory. So you can mkdir, and we'll just call it Scott test. All right, now we do ls, and where do we see Scott test? Way down here. So we do cd Scott test, ls, nothing in there. So that's how you can make the directory. There's another command if you want to clear your screen of everything, just the word clear. So I'm in this Scott test folder directory we created. There's nothing in it. So we created that with the mkdir, make directory. Now we need to remove it, or delete it. So the way we do that is with an rmdir for remove directory, just like we did an rm for the file name. So I'll get back out of this, and I'm in collections, which has Scott test folder, or the directory is a child. So I'll say rm remove directory Scott test. And now if I do an ls, Scott test isn't at the end anymore. So that's how you remove a folder or directory. All right, that concludes this section of the line commands that are related to the folder and file commands. All right, moving along. This next couple of commands are related to the text editor, and the text editor is nano. But also in relation to that, we're going to use the command sudo, and sudo is always used in conjunction with something. So otherwise it says, hey, you can't use it by itself. But sudo provides the authorization privileges of a super user or the root user. So it lets you do a lot of things that you couldn't do if you didn't have the right privileges. So, and one of those is nano, which is a text editor. So let's see what we got here. We're in the collections. There's the good old Atari's config right there. So let's do sudo nano custom Atari. Actually, tell you what, before we do that, just so we can play around with it, let's copy it. Custom Atari.config to custom Atari.scott.config. All right, when we look, yep, it's there. So now we're going to do sudo nano. So we're going to go into the editor. In the file we're going to edit. It's Atari scott.config. And boom, it's brought us up into this text editor. And at this point, it doesn't matter what the contents of this is. It's just text. So we can edit it. And you'll use this text editor a lot to modify config files. So let's just say, for instance, tube and, well, we like tube and let's say subs. We didn't like subs. Let's get rid of subs. So we come in here and we're going to delete it. The line subs. Okay. And then down here we say we want to exit. So that caret there means Control X. So I'm going to hit Control X on my keyboard. And it's going to say, hey, you want to save this? You modified it. And if you answer no, N, then it will discard the changes. If you answer Y, it will save them. So I'm going to press Y on my keyboard. And it's going to say, you're going to overwrite that file, custom Atari scott.config. Is that okay? And I'm just going to hit the enter key on my keyboard. This indicate yes. And there it goes. So if we did sudo again, I'm using my up arrow to repeat a key. Okay, if I do that again, then we look in here and we'll notice that subs is no longer in there. And I haven't made any changes, so if I hit Control X, I don't get that response, but I need to save it. All right, these next couple of commands I had to remove from the remote control over to taking a video of the screen, because we're going to do some reboot and power down and shutdown commands. And we're going to execute these with the sudo. And remember, sudo provides authorization privileges for a super user or the root user. Sudo, and we're going to reboot. So it's the word reboot. And I'm going to press enter. And so we're at the line command, and then it's going to execute the reboot process. A lot of times you'll do this if you change configuration settings, you want to implement them, you'll need to reboot your system. So whatever this system's got up as its reboot, it's going to do that. In this case, it's going to take us into a track mode. So just press the enter key, and you'll see it go through its reboot sequence. All right, and it's back. So the next command we're going to do, I'm going to go back to the line command, and we're going to execute the power off, which instructs the Raspberry Pi to power down. So I'll use sudo power off, and I'm going to hit the key. Now, what I want to show you too, when I hit the enter key, is I'm going to hold this Raspberry Pi up, and you'll see the red LED light. There's going to be a green one that starts shining and flashing. So red means you have power to your Raspberry Pi. The green one, that means logic's going on, some kind of file transfer is going on with the micro SD card. So that's why when people say power down your Raspberry Pi, wait 5 seconds before you remove the power, because there is stuff going on even though it doesn't display on the screen. So I'll show that as a demonstration. So you can see that the green LED is blinking even though the screen has nothing on it. All right, so we have sudo power off. All right, you can see the green light keeps flashing. There's nothing on the screen. Green light's on. Now the green light just went off. So now it is safe to cut power to the Raspberry Pi. That takes about 5 seconds. Okay, for our last command we're going to demonstrate, it's the sudo shutdown. So it's sudo shutdown, and we're going to do a -H and now. And the -8 means to halt any of the scripts on the machine, and then
The now means power the system down now. It doesn't mean to schedule it for 3 minutes or 2 hours later, but it's going to shut the system down, halt everything, and it's going to do it right now. So when I press the enter key, I'm just going to hold the Raspberry Pi up like that so you can also see the red LED will always be on, and that the green LED will come on and flash while it's going through the shutdown. And when the green LED is finally off, then it will be safe to cut the power to the Raspberry Pi. You won't have to worry about corrupting your micro SD card. All right, so I'm getting ready to press the enter key now. And then we're just holding this up. You can see the green LED light is flashing. And there, it just went off. So now it's safe to shut down the power to the Raspberry Pi.
That wraps up this RetroPie video, providing you a tutorial on line commands that will help you customize your RetroPie to meet your gaming needs. Hopefully I exposed you to something new in this video. Be sure to keep watching my YouTube channel to catch my upcoming videos on my retro game systems featuring the RetroPie software running on a Raspberry Pi. I think you'll find them very entertaining, interesting, and even educational. Future videos in this series will show you how to perform more detailed and technical configuration settings within RetroPie, an Emulation Station, and the track mode, all to customize the software for your preferences. Click on the red subscribe button below, and don't forget to ring that bell for automatic updates when I add new content to my YouTube channel. If you like this video, click the thumbs up button. If you dislike this video, well then click the thumbs down button. Please leave any feedback you have in the comment section below. And remember, you're never too young to learn or too old to learn.